Breaking news! Once again, in the world of conspiracy theory, this has been a very, very crazy year. From the destruction of the Georgia Guidestones to the Queen of England, most famously known as being a shape-shifting reptilian, has died. What does her death say about the reptilian conspiracy theory? And then we take a look at a tasty yet disgusting conspiracy theory. Is it possible that every time you eat a hot dog or have a pulled pork sandwich, you're actually taking a bite out of one of your relatives? Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. Hope you guys had an awesome weekend. We got a lot of stuff to cover, so we're going to get started right away. First off, walking into Dead Rabbit Command right now is one of our newest Patreon supporters. Everyone give it up for Ask Swo. Woohoo! Yeah, come on in, buddy. Ask Swo is walking on into Dead Rabbit Command, does a little pose when he gets right next to me for some weird reason. Ask Swo, you're going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the Patreon, that's fine too. Just help spread the word about the show. That really, really helps out a lot. I see more of you guys are doing that online recently, so that's awesome. I really like to see it. It helps the show grow. Now, Ask Swo, we're going to go ahead and we're going to toss you the keys to the Dead Rabbit Dirigible. We're going to leave behind Dead Rabbit Command. We're flying all the way out to jolly old England. Doing that, flying there. I'm kind of sitting back reading the newspaper, and I go, oh, man, did you see the news? Queen Elizibeth died. You're like, Jason, that's your reaction? That's your reaction? One of the world's oldest monarchs? And I was like, yeah, listen, I'm American, right? So, I mean, listen, it's horrible when anybody dies. I'm not celebrating anybody's death. But she, like, I don't know, she's not my queen, right? So, I mean, when I read the headlines, here's the thing. When I read the headlines, this is the first thing I thought. This is how you know you are a dyed-in-the-wool conspiracy theorist. I thought, I wonder how the reptilian conspiracy theorists are going to handle this. That was the very first thought. And then I thought, oh, it's sad that a 96-year-old grandmother died. But then I went back to, they have to be, it's so funny because I knew one of two things. And before we get into that, people are like, wait, what? Queen Elizabeth is a reptilian? I think this is such a widely known conspiracy theory. I'm not going to go too in depth. I'd be shocked if you hadn't heard this by now, but there's a British author, British conspiracy theorist named David Icke, and he was the one who really popularized the shape-shifting reptilian conspiracy theory in the first place. And he's British. He used to be a race car driver. And everyone's like, woo, yeah, he went so fast in that car, dude. Yeah, awesome, win the race. And he's like, read my book. And people were like, oh, is the book about race car driving? He's like, maybe. And they read it. That didn't actually happen. He wasn't throwing it out there in a ceremony. He was a race car driver, though. And then when he retired, he started uncovering the reptilian conspiracy. Interesting career. Like, whatever you think about David Icke's theories, I think that's interesting, right? He's a Renaissance man. He's done two things, race cars and talk about reptilians. He believes that the reptilian conspiracy theory, the shape-shifting reptilians, he is the main driving force behind that. Like, I remember back in, like, the early 2000s, it would even be, like, I don't want to date, I don't want to say it was pre-9/11, but I remember in the early 2000s, you'd be walking through Barnes & Noble, and they had the spirituality section, which was also doubled for the conspiracy section. It was very small back then. And David Icke had his own little row. So when Queen Elizabeth died, I thought, okay, she was supposed to be, if not the head of the reptilian world order on Earth, she was one of the biggest players, right? She was laying all the eggs. If you were a famous reptilian, you came out of her coccyx. Is that the term? Queen Elizabeth sat down and dropped a big old reptilian egg right in the middle of Buckingham Palace, and out crawled Kanye West. This conspiracy theory. Actually, that's specifically not one of those. You won't find that in a David Icke book, but she was either the biggest reptilian overlord or one of the top. And she's dead now. And I remember thinking, that sucks. Grandma died. That's not cool. Secondly, I thought, reptilians, seriously, I was like, how are they going to deal with this? And I remember thinking a couple different things popped in my head. I thought, one, they're going to ignore it. and they're talking about the reptilian conspiracy theorists, and they're just going to pretend it didn't happen. Or two, they're going to basically say stuff like, well, she's just going into another body now. She like shapeshifted into Charlie D'Amelio or something like that. Like, this is just part of the life cycle. Don't you know the life cycle of reptiles, you ignoramus? This is part of the, she just shapeshifted into someone else. This body's dead, but the alien is just shapeshifted. So basically it's one, they just pretend it didn't happen. Or they just kind of hand wave it off. The other one is they make up some sort of story for it. But I thought, is anyone, reptilian, human, gray, insectoid, everything dies, right? And I thought probably the most interesting way they could handle this, because I have been going on to a lot of forums that I don't normally go on. I was going like the David Icke's forum and stuff like that, trying to figure out what they're saying. I think that the easiest thing would be to say, yeah, Queen Elizabeth, world-famous shape-shifting reptilian, died at the age of 96. Reptilians also, I mean, maybe she was 400 in space years, but she just died. And now a new blood-soaked saga will begin. Who will take over the reptilian agenda? I found one post. I started looking through all these forums. I found one post that was basically like, now the war begins. Now the war between the reptilians to see who seizes control. And that one post was just that. My predictions were correct. Other people, a lot of posts in these forums are saying she's been dead for years. You didn't know that? The real Queen Elizabeth died a couple years ago. I was about to make a Princess Diana joke, but I'll refrain. That wasn't the real one anyways. This was like, so why would you clone a reptilian, first off? Just get a new reptilian overlord. Secondly, then that would make like the past couple years of David Icke talking about her, she's a reptilian, then that's not true because she was a clone. I don't know. Just accept, like, when I say accept reality, I will allow you, you can talk about reptilians all you want. I'm not going to say you can't do that. But accept that also reptilians can die, right? You can't have a world where Queen Elizabeth is a shape-shifting reptilian who rules the world, but she's been dead for years. What we've seen was a clone or a hologram or something like that, because then the first sentence doesn't make any sense. Just say, yeah, she died. She's a reptilian. Fine. I don't believe that, but if you want to believe that, fine. But if you want to continue, it makes more sense. You know what I mean? It makes more sense to be like, yeah, reptilians die too. And so that's going to be the name of my book, Reptilians Die Too. And then the other, what was the two theory? Oh, one that they just kind of hand waved it off. Oh, she'd been dead for years. And then what was the second one? I don't even remember what my second example was. I think it kind of blended together. Some people just were like, no, they just kind of, that was it. So one of them, I don't remember what order I put them in. Sorry for this very well-structured episode. Like I said, this is breaking news. This kind of jumped right in my lap and I was doing research literally up until the minute of recording this. You had one camp saying she'd been dead for years. It doesn't matter. It's just been a clone. And then the other group completely ignored it. Completely, they're not even talking about it. And what's shocking is that's the biggest group. So I was going on the David Icke forums, and I was going on this other forum I used to go to all the time, unironically, when I was more of a hardcore conspiracy theorist. Like, I never believed the reptilian shape-shifting agenda, but I believed a lot of conspiracy theories. Without even, oh man, it was entertaining, it was fun, but it was bad. Like, I would get in long arguments about 9/11 was an inside job. In real life, by the way, not online. Like, we would have these discussions about these conspiracy theories. Like, I was 100% dyed-in-the-wool conspiracy theorist, believed all this stuff, and I spent a lot of time on Godlike Productions. So I went back there, they're not talking about it. Like, this, in the world of conspiracy theory, this is huge. Just like the Georgia Guidestones blowing up earlier this year, and I predicted, and I was right, I said we're never going to find out who did that. As far as the public knows, there's not even an investigation. Isn't that so bizarre? Someone detonated a bomb. Forget what it was. Like, take out whether it's the Georgia Guidestones or your local froyo shop. Someone detonated a bomb, a fairly powerful bomb, to destroy all of this concrete that was designed to survive a nuclear war, right? That was the intent after these huge, massive ecological or man-made disasters. Georgia Guidestones will still be there to lead us. Not only did the Guidestones get blown up, And there's, as far as we know, no investigation. There's not even people really asking, hey, what's going on with this investigation, including the conspiracy theorists. Like, this has been completely dropped. At the very last moment when it blew up, basically the mainstream media who said, oh, well, we don't care about it anyways, it was built by a white supremacist, and we know who it was. And I was like, what? Where is this coming from? And then that became the official story, and then people stopped asking questions. I guess there was a documentary called Shadow Over Elberton. I could be pronouncing it wrong. Shocker that I pronounced a word wrong. There was a documentary that came out a couple years ago, and they said, we know who built the Georgia Guidestones because we were talking to a guy who said he knew who did it, and he opened up a box of letters that apparently these letters were from the guy who did it, and one of those letters, there's a pile of letters, the camera crew got a name and an address off one of those letters, and it was the name of some local Klansman or local white supremacist or something like that. So they go, that's the guy. Now, that documentary came out, and nothing really came of it, right? It came out like in 2017, 2018, like that. And then when the Georgia Guidestones blew up, everyone goes, oh, they're racist anyway, so it doesn't matter. We're not going to look into it. Now, it's so fascinating because from the day they were built until the day they were destroyed, the narrative was this was New World Order propaganda. This was the original Denver airport murals. This was the New World Order showing people how they wanted the world to be. And that was the through line. That documentary came out and nobody talked about it. It blew up, and the media just goes, it's a bunch of white supremacists, so who cares? And if you ask questions, you're a white supremacist, if you want to know. Like, that was a white supremacist thing blew up. Do you care if white supremacist stuff gets blown up? People are like, okay. And it disappeared. It disappeared. Now, again, just normal person walking through the world, you think they would at least be wondering why a bomb went off in Georgia that destroyed this concrete monument. But the conspiracy theorists, for them to drop it, even, you still see whispers of it now and then. But think about it, it's completely gone from the zeitgeist. Not just the Georgia Guidestones blowing up, but what the Georgia Guidestones represented. That entire thing is just gone. Like, you don't even hear them talking about it. I have seen a few, going back to the Queen Elizabeth thing, I have seen a through line in the conspiracy community where they're saying that since the Georgia Guidestones have blown up, Shinzo Abe was assassinated, and Queen Elizabeth has passed away, and there was one other world leader who died recently, and they were connecting that to basically the Georgia Guidestones was, I'm not, for the intelligence agencies that listen to this podcast, I'm not saying this, that the Georgia Guidestones was some sort of marker in time where the elite were starting to get wiped out one by one. That's an interesting conspiracy theory, right? Who was the other world leader? I don't remember, but so you still have some people talk about it. For the most part, all they're talking about in the conspiracy theory community is COVID. COVID, vaccines and microchips in your bloodstream and all that stuff. It's absolutely fascinating. But anyways, going back to the Queen Elizabeth thing, what are these people going to do now that their lizard queen has been killed? And I'm talking from the conspiracy theories, how they look at her as a lizard queen. She died, and they just stopped talking about it. One person was like, because when they first announced that she was sick, one person was like, oh, dude, if she dies on September 9th, that'll be 9/9/2022, and nines are basically upside down sixes, right? And everyone's just kind of like, yeah, I guess. And if you took 2022 and you got rid of the 0 and you had 2 + 2 + 2, that's 6. So 996, turn those other nines upside down, it's 666. But she didn't die on September 9th. She died on September 8th. So he made his prediction. He's like, oh man, I was hoping it would be satanic. It was just a grandma dying. But it's just so interesting how the conspiracy theory community, like all communities, right? If you find information that doesn't back your argument, you get rid of it or you ignore it. And the conspiracy theory community, because they're so fanciful, I do love them. I am a member of them on one end, definitely. They just can make stuff up. They just make stuff up at a certain point and be like, oh, she's been dead for years. What? You were still buying all those David Icke books saying she was a reptilian? Ah, nah. She was just a clone. She was just the clone. And I do have to say, though, and this is going to segue into our next story, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the Jason Jalopy. Get that car fired up while I'm finishing this little thing. I will say that as I was researching it, I said they were mostly talking about COVID. There was a ton of stuff about COVID and vaccines and people dying off from the vaccine and all that stuff. And 9/11. I'm doing a lot of this research leading up to 9/11. We're seeing all this stuff. I was doing research a couple minutes before I go on air. They're talking a lot about 9/11. So it's 9/11, COVID, and then the reptilian overlord queen is dead. Even on David Icke's own forums, it's barely a whisper. So weird. So bizarre. Because this was the big boss that, again, as she got older, people would be like, can a human live that long? No, only reptilians can live to be 96. It actually helped their argument that she was so old, but now when she's dead, they're like, it didn't matter anyway, she was a clone, or they just don't talk about it. So that's fascinating to me, but Asquo, go ahead and get in that Jason Jalopy. We're driving all the way out to your hometown. Asquo's like, oh no, are you doxing me? What did I sign up for? No, we're not going to Asquo's hometown. Or not even hometown. That was incorrect. We're going to where you live right now. And this is a thought experiment I came up with last night. Last night, I was sitting in a restaurant with my friend Sabine. September 10th, it's like 8. It was like 8 p.m. And this is what it's like to hang out with me, right? Right? I'm sure it's exhausting for people around me. We're out having Mexican food. It's delicious. And as we're leaving Modern Taco, which is an amazing Mexican restaurant here in town, as we're leaving Modern Taco, I remember walking through the doors and I go, what if all of a sudden you realized it was September 10th, 2001. It was 8 p.m. on the West Coast, because that's where I'm at. What could you possibly do to stop 9/11? And it became this thought experiment I started going through. And I kind of would like to invite you guys to do it as well. And this is how I set it up, right? My cell phone wouldn't work. My cell phone won't work. There's no 5G towers around. The reptilians have not put those in every city as part of their brain heating apparatus. There's no 5G towers. My cell phone wouldn't work. I didn't live up here in 2001. So if you've moved since 2001, you would be where you are right now. You're where you're at now in 2022, but all of a sudden you're sent back to September 10th, 2001. And how would you warn about this? And this is what I came up with. I go, I didn't live up here, so I wouldn't know anyone up here in 2001. I wouldn't be able to get into my place. My key might still work, but there'd be some weirdo living there. I would have to go into a business and use a phone. I'd have to say, can I use your phone? This is an emergency. And you would the internet was totally different, right? You'd probably just get a phone book at a certain point, and I would call the FBI. But here's the thing. The FBI would... They get hundreds of these calls a day, right? The FBI gets kooky calls all the time. And so this is what I figured out. I would have to call up the FBI. It'd be 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The attacks happened I said 12 hours, I thought, last night, but they happened at 7 or 8, somewhere around there in Eastern Standard Time. So I don't even have a 12-hour gap. It's much shorter. And you would have to be able to convince the FBI with knowledge you have now of the 9/11 attacks. But it would have to be stuff that happened before. Because if you start saying 3,000 people, they're going to die, and there's going to be people jumping out of buildings, and they're going to collapse, FBI's going to be like, wait, what are you talking about? You can make up any scenario. This is my situation. I'd call up the FBI and I said, listen, I'm sure you get all these calls 100 times, but there's going to be a terror attack on the East Coast in New York sometime tomorrow morning, September 11th. It's going to be 7, 8 in the morning. And I'd be like, because you would have to convince them that you knew about this. They would assume you were part of it, but I'd say it's going to be spearheaded by a guy named Osama bin Laden. He's operating out of Afghanistan with a group called the Taliban. His group's called Al Qaeda. And you would start listing stuff off and they would be like, how would he know that? Osama bin Laden was interviewed by Time Magazine in 1997, and he could probably pick up some of this stuff, and I'd be like, he's working with a guy named Mohammed Atta. He's currently under surveillance. He's been going to flight instruction schools. And so at that point, specific stuff like that, they would start to go, oh, wait, we are investigating that guy. We have been looking at people going to flight schools. And I would say there's going to be a training exercise. There's no way I would know this as a civilian on the West Coast. Tomorrow morning, the Air Force is going to do a training exercise. And what they're going to do is they're going to do a simulation of planes being hijacked so they can work on scrambling their jets. How would I know that? I know that. But that's really all the info. That took me like 20, 30 minutes because I was really thinking about it last night. Sabine's like, that's kind of interesting, Jason. I was like, no, but wait. And I said I would call the FBI, I would say all that stuff, and then I would call, like, the New York Times and the Washington Post. I would call different newspapers, because here's the thing, which is what would happen. I would get arrested. In very, very short order, because I'm using the phone at Modern Taco. I don't even know if it was Modern Taco back then. I'm using the phone at Crazy Pepper. That's what it used to be called. And the FBI would send someone in to get me, because I'm threatening, quote unquote, to them. I know all this stuff about some terror attack. They would think I was in on it. And the reason why I would call the media is because they're going to throw me in Guantanamo Bay. It's not even open at this point. They're going to assume I'm part of it, and they may not even do anything to stop it. But I would say, listen, a plane's going to hit sometime in the morning, and then there's going to be a period of time, maybe 30, 45, because I don't know a ton of information. Sabine was like, you know a lot. You actually know surprisingly a lot about pre-9/11, but I don't know what times the plane hits. And I couldn't say, like, and then United 93 is going to crash in Pennsylvania. Like, none of that stuff would prevent it. I'm trying to prevent it. But yeah, isn't that interesting? I thought, like, being so far away, having to use a stranger's phone, you might still be in the town you grew up in, which is fine. You just go like, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, terrorists are attacking tomorrow. But how, you might have better ideas or more information, but how would you be able to stop it? And I think you could give them enough information that even if they didn't believe you, once that first plane hit, you could scramble jets for the other planes. But I would say, listen, all you got to do, it's United 93 is coming out somewhere on the East Coast, and then I think it's American Airlines and United Airlines. Those are the only two airlines involved. Just put extra security. Just check them. They're bringing in box cutters. That's it. That's all you got to do. You can save 3,000 lives. You can stop a 20-year-long war. And you actually couldn't say that. You can never tell them you were from the future. You could, but they wouldn't believe you. Then they would definitely think you were crazy. You could just keep saying, I can't tell you how I know this, but I know this. It was interesting. I was thinking the thought experiment through. I remember another thing I said. I go, George W. Bush will be reading a book called My Pet Goat in Florida. Ask the Secret Service detail. Call them. Ask him if he's pre-read that book so he doesn't have any surprises as he's reading it. That's the book he's reading. How would I know that? But you would get arrested. They would take you somewhere. They probably would, they probably would waterboard you. You'd be the first waterboarder. But yeah, would it be worth it? Would it be worth it trying to, basically to save 3,000 lives? But then I said, what if you're on the phone with the FBI and you tell them all that information and they go, well, we don't believe you. We do not believe you that Osama bin Laden is going to attack America tomorrow. And you're like, but I've given you all that information. And then George Bush is on the phone and he goes, because it's an inside job, baby. You can't stop it now. And you're like, no. I've always thought, this is a conspiracy theory of mine. Yeah, do that thought experiment. I think it would be interesting to get your heart rate up. I've always thought the reason why history is the way it is because of time travelers. There may have been someone far worse in charge of a lot of these countries, right? Someone worse than Hitler, someone worse than Stalin. We could have had presidents that have completely destroyed the world, right? The wrong person gets elected at the wrong time. You could have a moment where, and this was kind of the plot of that Stephen King novel, but you can tell by the sound of my voice how much I enjoyed it. What was it, 1963 or whatever? That someone else was killed. That was actually an episode of Quantum Leap as well. Jackie Kennedy was killed instead of John F. Kennedy, and so Squiggy sent the Quantum Leap back into the body of Lee Harvey Oswald, and he shot JFK or something like that. I vaguely remember that episode. Spoiler alert for a 30-year-old television show. I think history, like, what if someone went back in time, like New York was nuked, and someone went back in time and stopped the nuking of New York, but because of that, just 3 towers were taken down in the middle of New York City. Who knows? That's my conspiracy theory, right? And if I am right, I'm going to get erased from the time stream because I know too much. But yeah, 9/11, it's always kind of a somber day, so I figured we'd play a game. Thought experiment. Could you stop it? Who knows? Maybe you're a general in the military. You're like, yeah, Jason, I really love your podcast, and I can totally stop it. I was a captain back then. I would make a couple phone calls, but interesting. And I want to segue that real quick into a Dead Rabbit Recommends. I wanted to do a long time ago, and I just kind of forgot about, but I never forgot about the movie. I just forgot about telling you guys about it. Super quick Dead Rabbit Recommends. There is a conspiracy movie called Toxic Skies, starring Anne Heche. And it came out quite a few years ago. It came out in the mid-2000s. It's about chemtrails, which I'm not a huge fan of that conspiracy theory. Not that I don't think it's really happening or not really happening. I just think it's kind of boring, right? It's just lines in the sky. Toxic Skies is about Anne Heche and some dude. This is real off-the-cuff recommendation as well. They're trying to uncover this conspiracy theory that chemicals are being sprayed in the sky. This was a made-for-TV movie, or is direct-to-video, or something like that. So it doesn't have the highest budget, but I'll tell you this. The first 5 minutes is pure nightmare fuel for any conspiracy theorist. Like, the first 5 minutes is absolutely terrifying. I felt really uncomfortable watching it. And again, it is like a made-for-TV movie, but I'm not going to spoil it, but you watch that opening scene and you're like, whew. That is the ultimate fear of every conspiracy theorist. It's a really good movie. I really did like Toxic Skies. They're trying to solve a mystery that we already know the answer to, right? That the skies are full of poison. And they're trying to go about it and expose this group. I guess it's not so much as a mystery because they kind of figured it out too, but they're trying to expose the group. And the movie is good. The movie itself is good. I'd give it like a 6 or a 7, but the beginning and the ending, you're like, yeah. That's 100%. Those are the 2 most accurate things you see in the world of conspiracy theory. The beginning and the ending. Excellent movie. We lost Anne Heche recently. I know there's been a lot of conspiracy theories about her death. She was currently working on a movie about child trafficking, child sex trafficking, and then she got in that car accident and she got all horribly burned up, and then she was moving around. People said, oh no, the firefighters were part of the Illuminati, because this episode's all over the place, but she got in this car accident. She crashed into a house. The house caught on fire. The firefighters came in, they saw the car, they didn't see her. They're putting out the fire. They see her in the car. She's like on the floorboards. They realize now. So she was like in this car for like a half hour. And then they took her out, and then there's helicopter footage of her being put on what people have said is a body bag, throwing her in a body bag. And then she bursts out of the body bag, and then the firefighter pushes her back into the body bag and zips it up. And people have said, oh, it's the Illuminati silencing her. What I've read, because on the conspiracy theorist forums, you have people who are just, reporting on what they see. That's fair. If you're looking at that and you go, wow, this is what it looks like, I'm not going to say you're a dummy, because that does make sense. You had other people come on and go, no. What that was a blanket. That's like a foil that they use for burn victims. They go, she has so badly burned. She is so exposed to like bits of dirt, toxins, anything. Like, she has no skin. So what they were doing was they were putting her in it wasn't like a bag, it was like this foil thing over her. And they go, yeah, she's still alive. And it freaked her out. So she sat up, and they're like, no, get back under here. Because that's the only way that, you have a chance, is being in this thing. She was just completely burned. I did think it was interesting, like, when I saw the news, I was like, oh, that sucks. I guess there was alcohol involved. That was another thing. But I don't know if they've proven that there. I guess she was talking on a podcast earlier that day about drinking a lot that day or something. And then, yeah, I'm just addressing the conspiracy theories, trying to go off the top of my head again here, but yeah, I do remember this. She got in the car accident. I go, oh, that sucks. And then the family's like, oh, the hospital's like, oh, she seems to be fine. She seems to be fine. And then like a day or two later, they're like, we're selling her we're not selling, we're donating her organs. She's dead. I remember thought that was weird, but it doesn't mean it's a conspiracy theory. I mean, who knows what this film, If it's just a generic, don't take my daughter Lifetime movie about child sex trafficking, then I don't think she would have gotten killed over that. If it was naming big names, if the villain was an obvious metaphor for Bryan Singer, then, definitely she could have been erased. I'm not saying either way, honestly, because I don't know much about that movie. It hasn't come out. People do get toxic skies. Like, again, that is an element of the movie Toxic Skies that she was in. And that movie that's what, when I saw it in articles, I go, I got to recommend that to my audience because it really is a good movie. So that's a Dead Rabbit recommends / another bit of current conspiracy news as well about Anne Heche. Guys, we're going to go ahead and save the human-pig hybrid story for tomorrow. All of that conspiracy talk went on a little bit longer than I planned it to, but I hope it also showed how passionate I am about the world of conspiracy theories. A lot of times people hate on me personally because I don't believe. They go, you don't believe in anything. You believe in the stuff you've experienced, which I think is pretty normal, but you don't believe in all these other conspiracy theories. And I definitely used to be a 9/11 truther. We've talked a lot about that. And then I'm not anymore. I saw a video of a World Trade Center, Tower 7? The third twin tower. It's weird to say it like that, but 3 towers went down on 9/11, 1, 2, and then building number 7. And I saw some video footage from the other angle, and you could see there was massive damage done to it. And I felt lied to by the conspiracy theory community. I know that the government lies to me. I know that big businesses lie to me. I know the media lies to me. But when my fellow conspiracy theorists lie to me, I took that as a betrayal because I thought we were all in this together. So, but I hope, really, if anything, and not like I ever have to defend myself. People can feel how they feel about me. People don't have to like me or anything like that. Whether or not I believe in every conspiracy theory I come across, I feel very passionate about talking about them. Like, I could just go on and on and on and on and on and on, but then that's just not an entertaining podcast. It's just a guy rambling. I'm actually hoping that the past half hour or so has been entertaining to you. It feels very rambly to me. It's not our normal type of show if you're a new listener. But yeah, I do love the world of conspiracy theory. I find it so fascinating. The ones I believe in, and even the ones I don't believe in. Even the ones I find boring, like chemtrails. I find it very, very interesting to talk about. And we got more stuff to come up on Dead Rabbit Radio. We'll talk about human hybrids tomorrow, human-pig hybrids tomorrow. We'll have Ask Who back to be flying the Carpenter Copter. We might even be covering some even weirder conspiracy theories. And then I will do some paranormal stuff as well, just to mix everything up. Guys, thank you so much for checking us out. Dead Rabbit Radio at Gmail. Wait, is it Dead Rabbit Radio? Yeah. Oh, man. DeadRabbitRadio at gmail.com is going to be our email address. They're already beaming the microwave 5Gs into my head. It's going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is at Dead Rabbit Radio. I'll start doing those again soon. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm so glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys.